Welcome back to the deep dive. So if you've been following the world of generative AI at all,
And I'm sure you have.
exactly, you know that we're officially past that initial experimentation phase.
Right. The party's over, and now the utility bills are starting to roll in.
They've arrived, absolutely. Today we're doing a deep dive into what it really means for Gen AI to become, a truly mature business tool.
It's a huge transition. We've moved from dazzling prototypes to real accountability, measurable impact, and, well, market warfare, really.
And we've got a fantastic stack of sources to unpack that.
We do. We're pulling from a major Wharton report on enterprise adoption, some fresh market share data that shows a surprising new leader.
I can't wait to get to that part.
And a really detailed user case study that just perfectly explains where AI stops being a search tool and starts being a strategic partner.
Okay, so our mission today is pretty simple. Distill that strategic DNA that lets a company actually succeed with AI. We'll explore the limits users are still hitting and reveal some of the massive corporate shifts happening beneath the hood.
We're going to find out what makes Gen AI an operating necessity.
And who that surprising new enterprise leader is. So let's get into the spreadsheets. Let's start with the big picture, with the adoption findings. We've got this Wharton and GBK collective study. They've called it Accountable Acceleration.
A great title.
It is. And it really tracks this shift from just curiosity about AI to a really disciplined adoption where impact and accountability are everything. What surprised you most in the numbers?
Just the speed of it all. I mean, we are firmly in the era of everyday AI. The report states, get this, 46% of business leaders are using Gen AI daily.
Daily. Not just trying it out once a week.
Not at all. And then over 80% are on it weekly. This isn't some pilot for a niche team anymore. This is baked into the managerial workflow.
Which means the big companies, the large enterprises, they've finally closed that adoption gap with the smaller, more nimble firms.
Exactly. The excuse of, we're too big to move fast just doesn't fly anymore.
And what are they using it for? Is it just, writing emails?
No, not at all. The high-performing use cases are the heavy lifting stuff, data analysis, summarizing complex documents, and really critically, contract drafting.
So real productivity work.
The days of AI for AI's sake are just definitively over.
Okay, that makes perfect sense, and it leads right into the second theme here, the ROI reality. We're talking about proving value.
A huge number, I think it was 72% of leaders are now rigorously tracking ROI.
With hard metrics, right? Like profitability, throughput.
All the things that actually matter to the bottom line. And for a lot of them, it's already paying off. 3 out of 4 companies are reporting positive returns.
Especially in certain sectors.
Yeah, especially in those high data environments like tech, telecom, and banking. So the conversation in the boardroom has shifted from if AI can deliver to how much and how soon.
But that success requires more investment. Where is all this money coming from?
That's a key piece of the puzzle. About 30% of the AI budget is now internal R&D, but the funding source is often internal reallocation.
Meaning they're pulling it from other places.
Exactly. Shifting dollars from legacy IT budgets and this is the interesting part, from HR and training budgets.
Okay, that sounds like a massive contradiction, especially given the next finding you flagged, the human capital paradox.
It is the core tension right now.
We see executive leadership driving adoption. The number of companies with a chief AI officer has jumped to 60%.
Right, leadership gets it. But at the same time, the investment in the actual people who have to use the tools, that's slipping.
Yeah.
The report says that even though 89% of leaders believe AI enhances employee skills, investment in training is down 8 points, and confidence in their ability to upskill their own people has fallen even more.
Wow, so they're measuring success based on current throughput, but what about the long-term risk of undertraining their entire workforce? It just seems incredibly short-sighted.
The report calls this talent gap the single biggest drag on long-term ROI. The winners, they say, are the ones who avoid this paradox, the companies that blend that performance rigor with, persistent human investment.
If AI is going to be part of your operating DNA, your people have to be fluent.
They have to be.
Okay, that makes the macro picture incredibly clear. Let's zoom in now and see how this plays out for an individual user, for someone trying to use AI as true decision intelligence. We've got this case study of a person planning a really complex multi-stop international trip.
Yeah, the kind of trip that usually ends up as a nightmare spreadsheet.
Exactly. And this anecdote just perfectly illustrates AI's power to manage that kind of complexity. The user said it felt less like a search tool and more like brainstorming with a very organized, well-traveled friend.
That's a great way to put it.
So what was the AI doing that a normal travel site couldn't?
Well, it wasn't just pulling data, it was reasoning. It was performing logistics. It mapped realistic routes. It confirmed that, nonstop flights weren't even an option for some legs.
Okay.
And then it reasoned through the best layovers, factored in time zones, and even flagged these super tight connections that would have been impossible once you account for customs. It handled all the tedious stuff.
But the real aha moment, the decision intelligence part, came when they moved on to activity research.
Yes. So they were looking at this highly recommended restaurant. At first, the AI just aggregated the usual reviews, pricing. Useful, but, nothing revolutionary.
And then what happened?
The user added more context about the travel group.
The constraints.
The constraints. They said it was a group trip, including older relatives, and they wanted something more casual and comfortable. The AI's recommendation changed completely.
How so?
It went way deeper than the marketing copy. It flagged that the restaurant required formal dress, had specific age recommendations, and was a multi-hour commitment for the whole evening. Details the promotional stuff just glossed over.
So it optimized for fit and success, not just for popularity. It basically saved them from what could have been a disastrous evening.
And it proves the core principle of this whole era. AI doesn't do the thinking for you. Its success depends entirely on your clear thinking.
The quality of the prompt.
Exactly. It's the difference between asking, where should I go on vacation in December, and getting a generic top 10 list.
Versus asking, I need a warm place, nonstop from San Francisco, under 6 hours, with a vibrant food scene that's safe for walking.
That's the strategic prompt. It turns the AI into a powerful filter. It's pure leverage for people who know the right questions to ask.
But the case study also pointed out a big limitation, right? The execution gap.
That's the final piece. The user had this flawless strategic plan, but then they still had to go to all the old traditional websites to actually book everything.
So AI is great for exploration and strategy right now.
But not yet for execution, not for
Yep.
the final action of buying the ticket. The next generation of tools, that's the gap they have to close. And that is where the competitive battle is really heating up.
And speaking of competition, let's look at that LLM utility race. Because the market dynamics here, according to the Menlo Ventures mid-year report, have created a real shockwave.
They really have. And the first sign that we're in a new phase is just the spending. Model API spending has more than doubled.
And this isn't for experimentation anymore.
No, this is fueled by production use for inference. That's the cost of running the models live in your systems, generating actual output for customers.
Okay, and here is the headline that just floored me. Anthropic has overtaken OpenAI as the leader in enterprise LLM usage.
It's a huge shift. Anthropic now has 32% of the market share. OpenAI has dropped to 25%, with Google at 20%.
That is a decisive change in who big companies are trusting with their live production workloads.
And it's even more pronounced in code generation, which has really become AI's first breakout app. In that space, Anthropic's Claude owns 42%. That's more than double OpenAI's share.
So what's driving this? Why is Anthropic pulling ahead so dramatically in performance?
It really comes down to performance and predictability. They've had a lot of success training models as step-by-step agents, which helps with complex reasoning. But the key technical driver seems to be something called reinforcement learning with verifiers.
Okay, let's unpack that. RLVR.
So think of it this way. Instead of just relying on messy human feedback to train the model, RLVR also trains the model to verify its own logic against a set of rules.
Like technical rules.
Exactly. So if you're generating code, it results in much higher accuracy, fewer hallucinations, and just more reliable output. And for enterprise, that reliability is everything.
Performance above all else. Which also explains why open source adoption has kind of flattened out at just 13%.
Right. If the performance isn't there, enterprises will pay for the closed source model that delivers. And you see that in the spending. Remember, inference costs.
Yeah.
74% of startups now say inference is their single biggest compute expense. That's the cost of success.
It's also interesting that loyalty is high. Most companies don't switch platforms. They just upgrade to the newer model within that platform.
Which puts immense pressure on a company like OpenAI to keep up with rivals like Anthropic on pure performance.
And that brings us to OpenAI's own massive maturation, because they are not standing still.
Not at all. The company that started as a nonprofit is completing this foundational shift from a capped profit startup to the OpenAI Group Public Benefit Corporation.
So that complex, kind of confusing capped profit era is over.
It's over. The new structure has the PBC driving the innovation and capital, but the original nonprofit foundation remains as the guardian of the mission.
And what is that mission exactly? It's backed by a $25 billion commitment.
It has two main goals now. First is health and curing diseases, including funding open source health data sets. And the second is developing technical solutions for AI safety and resilience.
So it's a dual structure designed to balance profit and purpose. And the Microsoft partnership has also been fundamentally redefined.
It has. Microsoft now owns about 27%, valued at roughly $135 billion. The new deal extends their access to OpenAI models until 2032.
And the crucial part is that this now includes models developed after AGI is reached, right?
That's the key. That was excluded from the original deal. Microsoft has basically secured its access to the very distant future.
But the partnership is also looser in some ways.
Right. Microsoft gave up some veto rights and exclusivity clauses, which gives both companies more room to pursue their own goals. This whole thing basically ends OpenAI's first build-out phase.
And sets them up for what's next, which is the IPO roadmap. Internal talks are suggesting a potential valuation of $1 trillion.
$1 trillion, raising at least $60 billion. If they file in late 2026 for a listing in 2027, it would be the largest IPO in history.
It's a tectonic shift. And their next challenge is just proving that innovation, commercial growth, and real accountability can all scale together under the bright lights of the public market. So, after all that, what does this all mean for you? We've seen that Gen AI success is really about blending that top-tier performance with human investment. You just can't neglect the people part.
And that clear strategic thinking is what gives you real leverage. AI is decision intelligence, but only when you fuel it with sophisticated, well-defined questions.
And the competitive landscape is just changing at lightning speed. Anthropic's rise shows that performance can flip enterprise spending almost overnight.
It really can.
Okay, so building on that, on those ideas of inference costs and budget reallocation, we saw that a lot of companies are funding AI by shifting money from IT or HR budgets. But we also learned that production inference is becoming the single biggest compute cost.
A cost that's only going to go up with higher usage?
Exactly. So here's a question for you to think about. If this new wave of competition is closing that loop between AI strategy and real-time execution, which is going to drive much higher usage and inference volume, how are businesses that are relying on these finite reallocated funds going to manage that massive inevitable surge in production costs?
Is the next financial bottleneck for enterprise AI already visible right on the horizon? That's a complex thought to chew on as these tools become just standard operating procedure. Thanks for sharing your sources for this deep dive. We look forward to hearing what you find out next.